Hey guys, welcome back to the Cast. I'm your host Josh, and I wanted to first of all, before I introduce my guest, so you can already see on the screen, but I want to let you guys know that we wanted to. Well, thank you guys for. We just reached 250 subscribers, which is awesome. It means we're halfway to our goal of 500, and so if you guys haven't already, you guys can like and comment, all the good stuff, but make sure you hit subscribe because we get to that number, great things can happen. But I wanted to let you guys know that. And now I'll introduce our guest who just disappeared off the screen, but maybe he'll come back in a second. But our guest today is Gerald Murphy, who's the Assistant Director of Formation here at the University of Tulsa, St. Philip Neri. And so I was going to introduce him and then let him tell a little bit about himself. Gerald, how's it going?
It's going good. Nice sunny day out here.
Yeah.
So I work here, Director of Formation, and I'm from England. I moved here because my wife is from here, so it's good to live in the same place where your wife lives. And I've been here for 7 years, and I really enjoy it, working with Father Porter and yourself and with all the students here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how'd you and your wife meet? I feel like I've heard this story before, but I don't know if I could.
We met online in kind of random fashion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like a dating site. It was like Catholic match. I was like, no, my wife wasn't even Catholic when we met. Yeah.
So you fall into that category. Like Father Carey high five to my wife when he found out I wasn't Catholic yet. And he's like, there we go, date to convert.
That wasn't the intention. Actually, my wife probably made me more Catholic than I made her during the dating period. But
yeah. That's awesome. So then you moved. So was it just like a leap of faith? Like you moved here? Or did you guys date a while?
No, we dated for years and we went back and forth. Yeah.
Nice. So she would come visit you. You come visit her type thing.
Yeah, she came out a few times. I came here a few times because we were in school. So during the holidays and things, we could visit for quite some time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I know Matt Fradd in Pineville Aquinas, he has a similar story. Like him and his wife, like I believe they met at a conference or something, but then they like dated long distance for a while. That he made the leap to leave Australia and move to America. So that's
I mean, that's why what does Jesus say? This is why a husband leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife. Yeah. It's more the man. I think the man should move. If anyone's got to move.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Well, we're gonna be talking a little bit today, and if you guys are local and you were there, we had theology on tap last night, and it went great. A lot of great people out there, and great to see a lot of students, but also community members as well. And so, but we got to talk about everything is a gift. And I thought I'd actually start with a little story. I actually had an experience with there was a Focus missionary that came over, and she was having dinner with me and my wife, and then another couple, and we were just like talking and chatting. I actually have two stories about her, which was great. They were really embarrassing for me, but then ended up being great in the long run. But we're just talking. We're just talking, and we're just like having a good conversation about the faith and everything. And then she's like, "Have you guys ever thought about it? Why does God let bad things happen?" It's like, Josh, what do you think? I was like, and I'm like newly Catholic. I like fresh, maybe a year or two. I mean, I became Catholic, and then COVID hit. So, like, even though I became Catholic, I was still like attending mass online, and so, but my catechesis wasn't great at the time, and so I was like, I have no idea, like absolutely no idea. But I thought I'd like start with that just because I mean we talked more about it, and like she gave me her answer, which maybe I can mention a little later. But I thought the talk went really great last night, and that was a lot of good insight. So we're gonna dive a little into that today.
Yeah, that was part of it. The way I've been thinking about it today is like the prodigal son. I was thinking about how the prodigal son came up. Because you have the father, and he has two sons. There's a man who had two sons, and one of them, I think it's the younger son. Who Augustine identifies like as the Gentiles. But he says to the father, give me my inheritance now, or give it to me now. And then he takes it and he leaves. And so that's like the way we were looking at gift was there's three responses. The first response is you accept the gift graciously in gratitude. The other response is like you snatch at the gift, you take it so it can't be given to you. And the other response is that you just reject the gift. You're like, I don't want it, or I don't have it. Don't give it to me. And the prodigal son seems to snatch at it. He says to his father, give me my inheritance. You only get your inheritance when your father's dead. And so you're saying, you're dead to me. Give me the money, the things of you, and I'll have a good time. The elder son is interesting because, and Augustine identifies him with like the Jewish people, is he just has a kind of fit when the younger son finally like accepts the father's love
Mhm.
and understands his need for it. The bad things happen to him. He's eating, can't even eat the pig's food. Bad things happen to him.
Mhm.
And he comes home and he accepts the father's love, and he lets the father put the ring on his finger. I think he gives him the cloak and everything. He accepts
Mhm.
the love of the father. But the elder son has like a hissy fit about it and is pouting, and it comes out of the father's house. And he says, I've had friends and you've never done anything for me, and I wanted this and you never gave me that. I wanted you've never even given me so much as a kid, and you've killed the fatted calf for this guy who's like wasted it all.
Mhm.
And the father's response is, everything I have is yours. You've been with me the whole time. It
Mhm.
already belonged to you. And so here I think you see in the elder son the rejection of the gift,
Mhm.
which is interesting because the elder son looks like he's retaining it because he stayed.
Mhm.
But he won't really accept it in an interior fashion. He won't come under the authority of the father. But the father comes out to him. And so I think that kind of nicely illustrates those responses to the gift. Like, do you like reject it and you like moan about it and whine and like,
Mhm.
I don't have anything good, and God's like, I've given you everything? Or do you try and take it before God's ready to give it to you and snatch it? Or do you like in humility, and when the prodigal comes back, he's lifted up, humility? Do you take the ring and the fatted calf? And I should have read the parable, but I think it's the cloak
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, I think it is. But yeah, and I thought those are like great responses, or like great way to break it down in those responses. Because I've never really thought about it like that. Like, you either reject it, you accept it, or yeah, you try to snatch at it. And I think that's me most of the time, is trying to snatch at things like before. Like maybe I'm not understanding like God's timing, or maybe I'm not understanding that God doesn't want that for me in my life. And,
Yeah.
but I try to snatch at it anyway, and it's like things never go well. Like when you snatch at it, you get what you were trying to take sometimes, but then you're like either not happy or it causes chaos.
Right, yeah, because you see, it's good. You're like, well, it'd be good if I had my father's inheritance. Like, I could do things with it. So and then you kind of think, well, I should have it, so I'll like go out of my way to get it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get it, like you say, like you have it, but it doesn't. The vision you have in your head like doesn't
Mm-hmm.
come to fruition. You know?
Yeah, 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 and and it's really interesting because that's what I kind of think of now. If someone was to ask me, like, why, why does a loving God, all loving God, like let bad things happen? And I think if you think of it in that sense, it's like thinking of it in a negative sense, coming out from a pessimistic view,
Right.
then that is tough. That's like kind of a tough question to answer if you're not prepped for it. But like thinking of it in this context, it's like you almost have more questions you need to ask yourself. Is like, well, what was the bad thing that happened and why did it happen? Like,
Yeah.
were you trying to snatch at something, or was he? Is it a gift in a different way of like he's actually gifting you like, or I kind of feel like when they ask, like, if you ask God for patience, it's not just going to all of a sudden you'd be overwhelmed
Yeah.
with this calmness, like, oh my gosh, I'm so patient. It's like, no, maybe your kid is like going to start acting up now, and it's like, I'm giving you opportunities to be patient. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's exactly right. So would the younger son have accepted like the gifts from the father had he not like gone down into the muck, into the dirt?
mm-hmm,
And is like the elder son, um, would it have been better for him to receive the gift of like dejection and poverty to lead him back into the father's house?
mm-hmm,
Yeah, so I think absolutely there's something like, because the other question is, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people?
mm-hmm,
Or why does God allow me to participate with him in suffering,
mm-hmm.
which is uh, a privilege beyond anything we have like any right to have. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, viewing it as a gift, viewing everything as a gift. So I remember, when my daughter was like 3 years old or something, she was by this tree, and she was like, we're at the park, or maybe it was at our house which we were renting, and she said, "This is my tree, Daddy. This is my tree." And immediately I wanted to be like, well, actually, that's not how ownership works. This tree belongs to the individual who like owns this thing or maintains this property, or this actually belongs for everyone. But then I was like, no, this is your tree,
mm-hmm,
because God made this tree. You're his daughter. You belong to him. This is put
mm-hmm,
here for you at this moment, at this point in time. And so, like, everything I have is yours, the father says to the elder son. He says to us, like, everything I have belongs to you because you belong to me and that belongs to me. And we put them together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at our cathedral here downtown, on above the doors, it says Haec est Domus Domini. This is the Lord's house. And it's like, well, if that's the Lord's house and I'm his son or I'm his daughter, well, this is my house too.
Mm-hmm.
And I can come in. And just like you go back to your parents' house and you just like go through the fridge, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's like one of the first things. Like, what do they got in the fridge?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you don't ask. You just go. You just
yeah,
because it's yours.
it's yours. Like everything they have is mine. Like what's in their fridge?
Yeah.
Like you come into the Father's house and like he feeds you from his table, right, in the Eucharist, and he listens to you like in his sitting room of the confessional, like he hears you, and we have family time in the Mass and in liturgy and in the worship.
Mm-hmm.
But this realizing like absolutely everything, the tree is a gift, or stubbing your toe is a gift, or the stars are a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a kind of childlike wonder. So like when my daughter recognized that at 3 years old, and I think maybe that's part of the stress that Jesus puts on like childlike dependency and childlike wonder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because they definitely are onto something when they pick up on those things a lot easier than we do, those teachings. But yeah, I came across two things that one was someone reminded me of when like after that talk there.
Mm-hmm.
But he said this reminds me of Shaquille O'Neal's interview, and he said his kids one time told their friends that he was there, said something to the sense of like, I'm rich.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Shaquille
that.
O'Neal's
Yeah.
like, oh no, you're not. I'm rich. You have nothing, and so he reminds them of that, and he still provides for them, and he still does. And he's giving them a gift of not, because he restricts their funds, or he said he's restricted. He says they're driving reliable cars. They're living in obviously my house. They're living in a very nice house. They're in the best schools. They're in the best basketball programs. They're tons of gifts. But he's also giving them a gift of not just like giving them an unlimited like credit card that he's going to pay off each month. And, like he's giving them this gift of responsibility, and they might not be looking at it that way, but it is a gift that he is in that mindset of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great analogy, because precisely like the older you get, you see that as well. Like when you're young, you just want the end result. So you just want the gift. And that's something that we spoke about. It's like, it's not just the gift of the gift, there's the gift of receiving the gift. Yeah. So one thing that Shaq said was something like, you don't get any of this cheese until you get 2 degrees. So he's like, you don't get like inheritance until you have degrees. Why is that? Because with that comes responsibility. And not just responsibility, but a sense of your own like accomplishment, that you have power and what's the right word? Agency in yourself, that you have gifts. Because if he just gave them everything, then they would have a sense of like, I'm nothing without like my dad. He's just like, I actually have no abilities in myself. I'm just like a Nepo baby. I'm just a rich kid. I'm a trust fund baby. But like you identified, there's a higher gift than the gift of like the obvious gift, which is the gift of responsibility, or the gift of receiving the gift of agency that he gives them by not making them like immature and dependent, utterly dependent. And other celebrities have done that as well. I think some of them have, I think maybe they miss the mark a bit where they say, I'm not going to give my kids anything,
Yeah.
But when it's like, no, I'm going to give them what they can receive. I think that's the way that I think about it sometimes. Of like, what can they actually receive? So with like the driving, like my son wanted to drive the car at 7. It's like, you can't drive the car. But like when you can drive the car, and if I could provide you with a car, then that would be a fitting gift,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with Shaq, like restricting those funds and giving him that gift now, he's still going to have it set up where if he was to die in his will, at that point, his wealth, now I don't know this for sure, it's not necessarily a fact, but I'm sure his wealth would then be given to his wife, but his sons as well. There'd be a portion of that inheritance that'd be given to him. But
Shaq is a pretty good analogy for God the Father in this instance, because he also like, there's stories he spends pretty liberally on like random people that he meets. Like he buys like kids in the grocery store, bikes and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's correctly identified is there is a greater gift than material wealth.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the point for us. There's a greater gift than the land of milk and honey. That's like that's a preparatory gift of the Old Testament. Like you have the land of milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
You will have descendants. What Christ brings is a gift of spiritual intimacy with God,
Mm-hmm.
and so frequently the spiritual intimacy with God comes through suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and comes through the negation of what we would think the actual gift was. And so we have to reorder ourselves and reorient ourselves away from, well, this thing isn't a gift, to
Mm-hmm.
like, what am I missing here? What's the spiritual gift within this, within what I'm missing, what I think is lacking in me?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I thought that there was one more Shaq analogy I had, which is funny because I feel like he's great. Oh, I know what it was. I think that very first initial gift that gave him the gift of, like, I don't know, the right order in his head and the way he is doing things was
Uh-huh.
like when he very first went pro and he got his first like rookie bonus sign on track or sign on check. And he said he blew through like $1 million in a day. And so he
Yeah.
always tells everyone, he's like, you don't think you can spend $1 million a day? I could show you. And
Yeah.
and he had a gift of his accountant, or his, actually it wasn't his accountant, it was just like a banker, like a guy that was there at the bank, calls him and tells him like, hey, you're broke. And he's like, what are you talking about? I've got millions in the bank. He goes, no, but I'm saying you have a broke mindset. You are, the way you're spending, if you continue to do this, by the time you like leave the NBA, you will be broke like a couple years after that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you'll not. And he actually got him to think about it, and which actually got Shaq on the track where he went and got his master's, and can't remember if he got his doctorate or not. If he's Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, I feel like he would use that title, but
Yeah.
he got a degree and everything in business. But now
He
he's like
did.
he owns multiple businesses. I know he's like a big franchisee with like Pizza Hut, or not Pizza Hut, Papa John's, I think
Papa
it is.
John's. He's got his own like Shack chicken shop or something as
Yeah, he's
well.
got tons of stuff where he's set himself up now where it's like, if I wanted to, my family would never have to work again. Like I've got
Mm.
generational wealth set up, but at the same time, then he sees that like I can't just give it to my kids though. I've got to give them the gift of responsibility
Right.
and everything too.
Because in give those monetary gifts, you actually take away like someone's ability to earn, or their ability to be motivated, perhaps, or like,
Mm-hmm.
so there are gifts that you can give which can remove the functions of others.
Yeah,
They might feel less motivation, or
yeah,
um, and I think Shaq had a great mother, from like what he talks about. So I think his
yeah,
his mother's love is kind of filtered through him.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So the other thing I was thinking about for gift was the gift of oneself, and I think birthdays are so important for
Mm-hmm.
signifying, because on your birthday, it should be understood that you are the gift.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, so in our culture, like, you get presents because like you are the gift. In other cultures, sometimes you are the one who gives out presents on your birthday, because again, you are the gift to others. When you
Yeah.
receive the presents, you're understanding for yourself that you are the gift, and you give them your understanding that you are the gift to
Mm-hmm.
others.
Yeah.
And so there's like a primordial sense there. And some countries, like, they don't celebrate birthdays, like, without, they don't have like that fundamental Christian disposition of like, you are good, you are the gift,
Yeah.
but you're not, maybe you're not, like, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're a burden, because that's the opposite of gift, is like the burden.
Yeah.
Like, you're a burden, you're useless, you're
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and you feel sorry for someone, like nobody comes to their birthday, no one gives them a cake or
Yeah. Yeah.
something, because then for that you would think that they would kind of internalize, oh, well, maybe I'm not a gift, maybe nobody wants to see me, maybe nobody cares
Mm-hmm.
about me.
Yeah, I had that experience. So I dated a girl in high school. It was like early age high school, like freshman year. So super serious. Just kidding. But her birthday was the day after mine. And we had this house that was like on 3 acres of land, tons of room. We were known for having like great like summer parties with the pool and the basketball court and all that stuff. And my dad had
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of games he came up with. So I
Huh.
told this girlfriend, like February 19th, February 20th, we should just have a combined birthday party. And so my mom was like, okay, for the most part, when you have birthday parties at this age, everyone's giving you $10, $15, $20. Like,
Right.
it's cards. So she put out 2 baskets on this thing. One said Jesse, one said Josh. And we had this joint birthday party, and I never felt so unloved and so horrible, because her basket was full of cards and I had like two
Mm,
or three. And I felt this sense of like, I kept trying to justify, like, maybe like people didn't know it was my birthday too. Like maybe they
yeah.
thought it was just hers,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, the invitation literally says Jesse and Josh birthday bash or whatever it was,
Yeah.
real big on it. So it's like, man, this feels terrible. So yeah, you feel that sense of like, wow, knowing like this is the worst.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, and I think a lot of people have a kind of, I don't want to say trauma around there, but like a birthday incident like
Yeah,
that where maybe nobody came, or
yeah,
yeah. My immediate thought was like, oh, I guess shared birthdays are not a good idea. Or
yeah.
people whose birthday is on like a religious holiday or some other
Oh yeah, yeah,
holiday,
mm,
they feel sidelined.
yeah,
And I think this speaks to our fundamental like understanding that we are a gift.
yeah,
Because if you didn't think you were a gift, you'd be like, whatever, I got 2 cards, I should get no cards or something like that.
yeah,
Or like,
yeah,
why would anybody give me a card? But
yeah,
like, you realize like I am good, so why am I not receiving? There's like a countersign there.
yeah.
Why didn't you get things? Was it because
I don't know.
if it had been your own birthday, would you have got stuff?
Yeah. So in the past, yeah, we
Yeah.
were like we always knew like, and this is like where the gifts that we would get like allowed us to like now have expectations. Like, okay, it's my
Mm,
birthday. I typically get around between family and friends around $300 for my birthday.
right.
And so then when you get $25 for your birthday, you're like, this is some bull crap. And so
Yeah. You're like,
I'm like,
what is this?
what in the world? And so, yeah, it
So
was strange. And my mom felt so bad. And my mom's the kind of person that I don't remember, but I'm
yeah.
sure my mom did something big for me afterwards
Yeah.
because she probably
Yeah.
felt so bad. But yeah, but then the rest of the birthday, it was like, I don't know, like, I feel like now we should just celebrate her. Like, let's not act like this is my birthday too. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah. You
One of
hear
those
from
cards
me?
was probably from my mom. It was like probably my mom and my cousin or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was terrible. Yeah, and I remember that to this day. It's one of those things where it's like I don't think it is, but it's probably not affecting me now. But back
Right.
then, I do remember back then thinking to
Yeah.
myself like, this is terrible. And I've had other birthdays where you just have the birthday party, and then it's like everyone comes and it's fun,
Hmm.
and you're like, don't feel like you have to bring a gift, but then at the same time, you're like,
Yeah. You
so
secretly
no
don't
one
want it.
does, no one does. And then everyone's hanging out, and you're just like, no one's even like I'm not really doing my part of like getting out there and talking to anyone, but like no one's like talking to me. It's not about me. This isn't even about
Yeah.
me. Like, why am I even having
Yeah.
this? This is dumb.
Yeah.
But
Or you're like, should it be about me? Like I'm not God. Why should everything revolve around
yeah,
me?
yeah,
Maybe you like get a lot of attention, and then you're like, well, this is too much.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's just finding that space of like, so how would you go back then, like revisit? You get 3 cards. How has that like been a gift for you, or how was that like? How could you interpret
yeah.
that through the lens of gift?
So I think how I think about it now, like the last time when I talked to Lindsay, she's like, "What would you say to Benedict if Benedict and because Adeline and Benedict are 2 days or 6 days apart,
Okay.
July 1st and July 7th, so coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and we do combined birthdays. So she's like, "What would you tell Benedict if we did that?" And she got a bunch of gifts and he got barely any. And I was like, man, that's tough. That's again one of those questions where it's like on the spot. Like, I don't know what I would tell. But I guess I would have to look at it as a sense of like you should be happy for your sister, or like from this week, you should be happy for like your girlfriend got all this like love and
Yeah.
attention, and then you should just be grateful that they all came to your house and to your birthday, and but yeah, that would be a tough conversation to have, especially with a freshman in high school. Where it's
Right.
like, man, like they are thinking to themselves like maybe I'm not that popular, maybe people don't like me.
Yeah. And that could have like I'm not trying to offend, but that could have been true as well. Like it
Yeah,
could
yeah,
just
yeah,
be, but then how is that a gift? Is it like, well, just realizing like, okay, people don't like me, but that doesn't destroy me.
yeah,
That hasn't crippled me.
yeah,
And like, well, God loves me, and like going back to like the more fundamental gifts,
yeah,
because like we can build our self value and our lens of the wall by like the rules that we create for ourselves.
yeah,
So if it's like I'm valuable if I get 20 cards on my birthday. If I hit 300, I'm valuable.
yeah,
Anything less, I'm not. Anything over, well, I'm super valuable.
yeah,
But it's like you could have nothing, or you could have 1,000. You have the same value in the eyes
yeah,
of God. And just
mhm,
coming back to those primordial
yeah,
truths.
yeah.
And then you have the gift of being able to share the story here, and like everybody can relate to like the bad birthday story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I think now too of like, okay, if that was the case, 'cause like I said, I don't know, and I definitely probably at the time did not want to ask, like, did you guys just not like me? But if that was the case, we knew that was the case, then yeah, the gift would be like, okay, they don't like me. Why?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I'm a little arrogant and I'm cocky because so like in high school, like I was the ish. No, I'm not really, But like I was successful in a lot of things. I like started on the varsity basketball team way earlier than most people, my sophomore year, and I was the first chair trumpet player my freshman year. I was like all state 3 times in trumpet. Like I had a bunch of accomplishments.
Yeah.
But with that, I think kind of came this like successful, like I was like one of the popular kids in school, or what I felt like was popular kids in school. So if I was letting that get to myself, plus parents who like want like normal, like sometimes want to inflate your ego as well because they're super proud of you. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, you do feel like maybe I'm a little bit above everyone, which turns people off. So maybe the gift would have been at the time. And like I said, I don't remember back to like if I actually learned this like lesson then, probably not. But that the
Yeah.
gift would be that I got to my eyes opened to they don't like you because you're arrogant and cocky. So how can you
Yeah.
be a little bit more selfless, and how
Hmm.
can you be a little bit more humble to like humble and thankful for the gifts you were given, but humble to the fact of like you were given these gifts. Now how can you use them to help better other people?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I could see the same thing for myself at that age too. I I have a feeling that in the prodigal son it says something like and his eyes were opened or something like that, or maybe that comes
Mm,
from it from another passage. But
mm,
yeah, like the gift being, which is a great gift, because if everybody was like sucking up to you and giving you presents even though they
yeah,
didn't like you, well, that would be worse, wouldn't it?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you wouldn't get the gift of sort of
hmm,
perfecting yourself and working,
yeah.
against your lower desires, perhaps.
Yeah. And I watched this while you looked that up. I watched this other podcast guy. He's a financial audit guy. So it's not even a Christian thing, but anytime someone says like, well, my boyfriend helps me out with this bill, or my mom and dad help me out with this bill, and they help cover this, he always says like, okay, because it does seem like that's a gift. Like, but he always says, I want to make sure though that they're not enabling you. Because if they're enabling you, that's not a gift. They're making things worse. If
Yeah,
when you get in a bad financial situation and then they get you out of it, that's not a gift. That's actually enabling you to just continue to make those habits. That the gift would be them not helping you, except for helping you make right choices financially to get out of that situation. And I was
yeah.
like, that's a great point. Like, because I've always like had great community and family that when I was struggling, like in Oklahoma City, I struggled financially. I could text my
Hmm.
mom like, "Hey, we're this much short for rent or whatever," and she would cash app it to us. So
Yeah,
I don't think that necessarily maybe is like enabling. She wants to make sure we don't like get evicted, but if it wasn't followed up with, "What are you guys doing? What are you guys spending? Like how? Like what's? Why are you short
yeah,
on money?" Which always was my mom's questions right afterwards. Then she would have just been enabling it, and it wouldn't have been a gift. It would have been like the opposite of a gift. It would have been a
yeah,
not a gift in disguise of a gift.
yeah. You could have been like snatching at it. Like if you needed help and she helped you and you were like grateful, if it came out
Yeah,
of gratitude and you accepted in that. But if
yeah,
you had a kind of presumption of like, well, mom will cover it and I don't need to
yeah,
do anything,
mhm,
then that would be, so that comes down to like sometimes the interior disposition
yeah,
just in and
yeah.
of itself. Yeah, in the prodigal son, it says, he says, like when he came to himself, um, and just like really just came to himself, like he realized maybe the gift of himself.
Mm,
When you come to yourself, I shouldn't be down here with the pigs.
yeah, hmm,
Like that's, and maybe the pigs, in his case, in this case, would be like arrogance. I shouldn't be arrogant, or I should be presumptive, or I
mm,
shouldn't be like mean and harsh. Like that's not
mm,
myself. That's not who I am in the Father's image.
yeah,
I shouldn't be snatching the gifts. And then
mm,
I will rise and go back to my Father's house. Like
yeah,
that's where I really am myself, like in
yeah,
my Father's house.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, man. And I feel like there was another like example I was thinking of like that I think maybe is a little too far is there's an entrepreneur I know. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk, but he has this huge company and he's like very successful entrepreneur, very rich. And he said when he passes away, he will not leave an inheritance. Well, his inheritance he'll leave for his kids is $10,000 each,
Hmm.
and like a book on how to become a successful like in whatever they want to do. And at some point, some people would say like, and I guess you could still look at that as a gift, but when you have this multi-billion-dollar business that you could like leave your kids off like completely like wealthy, but he's like, no, I'm gonna leave them $10,000 in a book on how to be successful, and that's it. Now that I say it out loud, it actually does sound like a gift, but it just seems like a very much like I'm not giving my kids anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's another maxim that the giver receives in the mode of the receiver receives in the mode of the receiver. Okay.
Mm.
The receiver, you can only receive, like if you were speaking Spanish, I couldn't understand you. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to communicate with me, you have to speak English. If you don't want to communicate with me, that's fine. But like if you could speak 10 languages,
Mm-hmm.
but if you want to speak to me, like you have to speak English. I can only receive in that mode. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think some of these, I mean, honestly, I think there's some bravado, there's some braggadocio in these kind of statements by these people, and there's a
Yeah.
lack of understanding of like each child. What do they need? If
Mm-hmm.
you had, if one of your children had chronic sickness and like they need to be taken care of, is like you're gonna leave
Yeah.
that guy 10,000 as well, or are you gonna leave
Mm-hmm.
enough to take care adequate
Yeah.
care
Mm-hmm.
like caretakers for him?
Yeah.
It's like, well, if one of your sons needed something else or whatnot. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like the other thing is like if you've built a business, my dad, built his business from nothing. That doesn't mean I can do it. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean I have the gift of being able to start a a huge business.
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing the gifts of each child, and there's a kind of presumptiveness there of like, well, anything I can do, you can do. We spoke about that last night, and like in terms of
Yeah.
the body of Christ, and you might be an eye, I might be a foot, you might be an apostle, I might be a teacher. It's like we have different gifts, and to like unilaterally give. If you said I give the same present to my daughter as to my son, it's like, well, why do they not have different interests and different talents and different
Yeah. Yeah.
abilities? So you have to take into account the receiver, the one who you're giving to, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
understand what it is that they need. And maybe one of his kids is like excellent at managing a business, and he gives him a business to manage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And instead, but if you have a myopic view of like, well, everybody has to be like me, and there's a way in which it's just like somewhat like prideful and tyrannical, like you just do what I did, and it's like, well, maybe that's not their talents. Maybe they
Yeah.
want to become a musician
Mm-hmm.
or a football player or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think of that like even like within our ministry, like if someone I came across on campus like was thinking about converting and they approached me and were like, but I have all these objections I need to overcome. Like I could try to tackle it, but if it's not the talents and the gifts that God has given me to like either be an apologist or be a theologian or something like that, I should probably pass that on to someone who he did give those gifts to. And I would be giving that person a gift. And this is me not explaining it, but kind of trying to understand it. But
Yeah,
me giving that student a gift of introducing him to you or to Father Porter, who
yeah,
could better answer their questions and help them get to where they're going to be, and then you guys giving them the gift of that knowledge and helping them understand what their questions they have.
yeah. So it's just sometimes like we understand like what our role is,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's like maybe I could explain something better than someone else.
yeah,
But maybe it's just like you just don't jive with the way I like.
mm-hmm.
Maybe you just jive with me for some reason, and you're
Yeah,
better going to Ignacio or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, and that's always like the gift of humility, which is like just to be in the proper
mm-hmm.
place,
Yeah,
to use our actual talents and to be in the proper place.
yeah. I would say it used to be the biggest struggle of mine too. Like I was always like probably because coming from high school where I was like starting varsity first chair trumpet, so I was kind of like the go-to guy and stuff. But then when I reached Oklahoma State, and now I'm at a college level where people are coming from all over the country, and like so at the trumpet studio, I was like in middle tier, and I had a hard time with that. Like, I had so many guys. They ended up becoming some of my best friends, but they had so many guys that are so much better than me, and I just had to be like become so humble of like I'm used to playing first chair trumpet, and now I'm playing third and fourth. I'm having to like
Yeah,
be humble and learn this new role and accept that I like, hey, at least I'm like I get this gift. I'm part of this group still. Like I'm part of it. Or maybe I was
right.
playing first chair, but I wasn't in the top band. I was in the second band. So getting the gift of like being able to lead these other trumpet players that are on the maybe the bottom tier that I'm helping bring them up.
Yeah, just to
But
see
yeah,
myself as I really am, and a lot of our students go through that because a lot of them are like valedictorian, like top of class
yeah,
4.0s in their respective high schools, and they come here and they're like
you're like,
they're mid,
yeah,
but they were always mid. They just
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know it, and
yeah,
and so it's like you just come to that understanding. But you're not, and if you've built your understanding, your self worth off your achievements, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed
yeah,
because at least at some point your mind's going to go, your body's going to go.
yeah,
You won't be able to do that anymore. But if you build if you come to the sense of yourself off the Father's love, then you'll always be on a firm foundation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that was something I had to learn late. And actually, Lindsay used to always say something. She said something one time, and she like was very blunt with it. She's very direct, but she was like, "I think that you are. I don't think it was you are, but you can be a selfish person." And I'm like, "What? Like what? That's like such an insult." She goes, "No,
Yeah.
no, no. Like I'm just saying." I think sometimes when you can like dominate a conversation, like you can like not let other people talk, or you can like want to share about you and you, but you never ask first about them. And so she's like, it's not like in like just like you don't care about other people, but it's just like in that way. And I was like, man, it took so long to get over that. Like, and have the humility to actually understand and
Yeah.
see it and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I get what you're saying. Okay. Like you're not just trying to like hit me with a shovel and beat me down, but you're just trying
Right.
to point it out. Like, yeah, it does. It takes humility to understand
Yeah.
it. And then I don't think you can actually be a good gift giver until you can reach that stage, because
Mm.
if you're going to give someone a gift, but you're doing it because of the return you'll get, or like the praise you'll get back because you were such a good gift giver, like, I don't know, like kind of like,
Yeah, it's not a gift then, is it?
yeah,
It's you're taking from them.
yeah,
What a gift of your wife to be like dispassionately honest with you. You
yeah,
know, that's the gift of
yeah,
a loving wife. You're just
she
like,
is.
she sees you as you are, and she's just like, let me kind of just reveal your faults to you for
Yeah,
a second, because
yeah,
I know it's not going to destroy you. I know you can like
yeah,
overcome. Let me inspire you
yeah,
to like overcome these things.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and we got to be honest with each other, because I can give her the gift back of being like, you can actually come across,
yeah,
you come across a very mean person sometimes. She's like, "What do you mean?" And it's like, I'm direct. I'm like, I'm saying how I perceive it.
yes,
It
yeah,
seems so mean, but I understand where you're coming from. And so us having to find that balance. Okay, I need to be a little like I need to soften the blow of these like
yeah,
really
hmm
direct things I have, but then I also need to like bring it down and realize like I need to step behind and like push people up. And the more I can do that, the more like that like fulfilling the thing I'm chasing, that praise and that fulfillingness I'll get from God instead of people, and it'll be so much better.
right.
And,
And understanding that, you know, when you trust the person giving you that feedback,
mm-hmm,
or like giving you that opportunity for growth, that
mm-hmm,
gift, then you can take it as a gift.
yeah,
um, what is the, I think it's in Proverbs, like, you rebuke the wise man and he will love you, rebuke the fool and he will hate you. So the wise man, like, here's what you're lacking. He's like, well, thanks very much. Like,
yeah,
I didn't see that. Thanks for bringing
yeah,
that to my attention.
yeah,
One of my fond memories from one of those students is when they came up and like rebuked me for something. They took me to one side, like, I want to tell you, when you said this, it made me feel like that. And they were upset, but I was like really happy. I was like, thanks so much. Because
yeah,
what it meant to me was that like they knew that I could take that, and they knew that they had the kind of relationship where they could bring that to me.
yeah,
And I apologize, right? I shouldn't have said,
mm,
it wasn't that bad what I said,
yeah,
um, at all. And it wasn't about them personally, but
mm,
it just was like a gift to me of like, I have the kind of relationship with you where I can bring you your fault, and I know
mm,
that you can receive it well, and that you'll acknowledge that.
yeah,
And so, yeah, we even give the gift to the other person of,
mm,
like, the vulnerability, and allowing that relationship to get deeper,
yeah,
allowing them to let go of certain things,
mm,
and be humbled.
yeah,
And then also there's the idea of like, well, how do I give you the gift of receiving the gift? So if I'm gonna tell you that you dominate conversations, that has to be in a particular. I want to
mm,
do it in a way that you can receive it. So
yeah,
this is particularly key for like evangelization. Like, you can't just
yeah,
hit someone in the head and be like, "Stop
yeah,
doing that. It's a sin." It's like, well,
yeah,
they're not going to receive. That's true,
yeah,
assumedly, but it's like, how do you get that across in a way that they can receive? And I think a lot of times we get in a situation where we can kind of discern that maybe there's no good way
mm,
to get that across the way they can receive. Or maybe I have to do a lot more work than I actually really want to do. And maybe that's what God's drawing me out. Maybe
yeah,
instead of just like a one-off comment, God wants me to have a whole relationship with this person
mm,
before I
yeah,
give them this particular gift.
yeah. Yeah, and that's what I think when it's Branson that was on, and we talked about that little way of evangelization, just about how like focus is big model. Really, it's Jesus's model, but the win, build, send is like you got to win the person over, because if you're going to win them over, and then build them up, the build them up phase might include some of that where you're like, I need to be direct with you of like, whatever that belief you have isn't right, or what you're doing is not right. But if you have that relationship built, it should be a little easier because it's
Yeah,
like,
because
all right,
you can trust the giver. You can and not
yeah,
be suspicious that, well, you're
yeah.
just trying to get me to do what you want.
Yeah, yeah. If Branson told me like I was doing, if he was the one that was saying like you're like I think you're being selfish, like I don't think I would take it as bad as if like some random donor,
Yes.
told me I was being selfish. I'd be like, oh shoot, yeah. And actually, that's something I love about Father Porter from the very beginning. I remember when he like I don't remember how early on it was, but it was really early on, and say there might be times when you guys might have to politely smack me upside the head and tell me like, Father, like, no, we're not doing that, or that's like, I don't think that's a good idea, or hey,
Yeah.
I need you to do this, and like, so I loved that about him. He was just
And
like,
yeah, and if someone can do that, that's a real sign that they've come to their self, that
yeah,
they know what they're about.
yeah,
That it's like, yeah, this is not going to destroy me, or I don't need you to be like a yes man,
yeah,
because otherwise my fragile like sense of self is going to be destroyed. It's like I know that I'm operating out of that sense of giftedness that I have.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that folks missionary that met with us, and she asked us that question of like, why would God allow bad things to happen? It's like now from this context of like we're talking a lot about people to people gift giving and receiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so if God is allowing something bad to happen, like her simple answer was just that to bring out a greater good.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking about that in that sense last night because I was saying like the only other time I've heard a similar like or had a similar conversation like this was with her, and she had mentioned that, and I was like, I guess that makes sense. Like something bad could happen in your life, but then in the moment, yeah, it seems like the world's crumbling, and like, well, yeah, why would you let this happen, God? But later on, and you
Mm-hmm.
realize, I'm actually really glad I went through that. I remember that really bad breakup that happened, and I thought to
Yeah.
myself, like, God, why? I thought I was going to marry this girl. Like, what happened? I actually had a
Mm-hmm.
very bad relationship thing that happened, but um, I'm all messed up.
Yeah.
But
You're like, what a gift I didn't marry her. That's
yeah, exactly.
fantastic.
And
Yeah.
looking back on it, it's like crazy to see now. And actually, one in high school, which wasn't the one I'm talking about, but like one in high school, like it was like we think is super serious. And when
Mm-hmm.
we broke up,
Mm-hmm.
it literally felt like the end of the world.
Right.
But now, like she's happily married, has like kids. I'm married and have kids, happily married, I should say, and have kids. And then I just ran into her dad recently, who's like the like head knight at Knights of Columbus at St.
Mm-hmm.
Mary's, and I'm like, this is super cool. But I just thought that was a great like example. And then hearing the talk last night, I was like, that even puts that into more perspective of like, yeah, you're going to go through something maybe you think is just the world ending, but there's going to be a greater good that comes out of it, which is it turns it into a gift and almost just another way that like just shows like God has like defeated the devil. Like, yeah, bad stuff can happen.
Exactly.
Bad
Yeah.
stuff can happen, but a greater good can come out of it. And that's when you see that gift.
Yeah. And instead of like, so we often focus on the problem like in front of us, and
Yeah.
God is inviting us to focus on the person of God and be like, well,
Yeah.
this the problem's a problem, but in context with the person of God, it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
The Israelites were trapped between the Egyptians and the Red Sea, and if we just focus on that, then there's no escape.
Mm.
But if we know that God is leading us out, then there's going to be an escape. Like, what is it? Well, we don't know what it is, but I don't have to know what it is.
Mm-mm.
And that's what faith is. Like, well, God will make a way. What is the way? Oh, he's literally torn the sea open. Well, that I didn't see that coming, but it doesn't surprise me because that's the kind of guy that he is.
Yeah.
He's not let us out here to be killed by the Egyptians.
Yeah.
So when you go back in your own life and you have like these experiences and you can give thanks to God, well, thank you, God, for not marrying this person, and thank you, God, for this and for that, then it allows you to be have faith that he's going to come through for you in the current situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will wrap it up here, and we're going to do the Saint draft now. But if you guys can comment below maybe some time that there was a something that happened in your life, if you want to, that was you thought was terrible, but it ended up being a gift, and how it was a gift. I think it'd be great conversation there. We're going to finish up like we always do with the Saint draft. And I always joke, I always say, I had to say this joke every time. It's like Daniel McKay one day will like work part-time here, and he'll have a cool logo thing that pops up that says Saint draft. But for now, we don't. Maybe I'll have a button over here that plays a theme song or something. But for you guys who have never seen it, or maybe if we haven't talked completely about it, but we do the starting five plus the sixth man. And the rules are, there really aren't any rules. We've typically come up with Jesus is off the table. Mary is off the table, except one time we're like, let's put Mary back on the table, except you have to pick a specific apparition. It can be anything. But we'll do a starting five saints if they were alive today, they could save the world. And there's no wrong answers. It's like, whose line is it anyway? And the points don't matter. But you guys comment below which you guys think team's better. And I always let the guests go first. So, and you can pick. What we do is you pick the saint and then like just a very short little why.
Any saint? Any
Yeah.
saint?
Yeah.
All right. I have to take Therese then. I'll say St. Therese, little flower.
Oh yeah.
Doctor of the church. Doctor of gift, we might say. Great saint.
Yeah. I love picking her too. And she's always on my list, so she's off now. But I love that. Like one of the sisters, like when she passed away, and they're like writing her eulogy or something. Like they said, we don't know what to write. She didn't really do anything.
Yeah, she didn't do anything.
Like that's awesome. And now she's a doctor of the church. That's crazy. I would probably go with my leader first, but I got to pick a different leader because I told myself I can't pick the same people from last week. So. Okay, so we'll go evangelization route then. I'll go St. Francis Xavier. So go out there, baptize a whole bunch of people, and bring them back into at least that sacrament to start.
Okay, I'll take Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, who probably, man, in one sense I want to say he's the greatest male theologian, and Therese is the greatest female theologian.
Yeah, that's true. So you got to have the smarter team.
Yeah.
I would go. Let's go. I'm trying to remember who I had last week. I probably should have written it down. That's okay. I may cross over a little bit. I'll go JP2, John Paul II. So he was the one I was going to go with first, but I couldn't remember if I picked him last week. So if I did, I will. But John Paul II, so he'll be my leader. Nothing wrong with Pope Francis, but John Paul II.
Good. I think my battery's going to go, but I'm going to try and get through my lost saints. Can't take Mary. That's a shame.
Unless you want to pick
St. Peter. I'll take St. Peter. Yeah.
Okay. That's a great one. Build the So okay, then I'll go with. I knew I saved him for this week. Is who Jesus said the most righteous man, St. John the Baptist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need another lady for the Marian charism at least. I'm gonna take Bernadette because like Bernadette is like St. Therese before St. Therese was around.
Okay. And that was 4, right? So pick 4.
That's 4.
Okay, cool. So I'm on 4. I don't have any girls on my team either. I'm going to need that. I'm going to go family life, and she just spits out the religious sisters as St. Zelly Martin.
Okay, yeah, I need a lay person too. Yeah. So I will take...
And she's a business person too.
Yeah, I'll say St. John Amala.
Okay, so that's 5. Who's that?
Yeah, she is... she's canonized like this century. She was an Italian wife, mother, and she was a pediatrician for a time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then my 5th, I was in a donor meeting one time, and they said, "Tell me about." Or no, it's with Julia Rush when she was doing our new logo, and she's like, "So tell me about St. Philip Neri, because I don't know anything about him." And me and Father Porter were like, and then I started reading about him. I'm like, dude, this guy's awesome. This guy is great. And I looked at him as kind of like the Mother Teresa before Mother Teresa. Like he was just hit the streets. I mean, gave up his uncle's business and just went and hit the streets and evangelized, and loved his he was kind of just like the little way of evangelization. Just went man to man and just started like, "Are you ready to serve Jesus?" And got them plugged in immediately. Like, let's pray together. Let's go serve. And so I think he'd be great.
Yeah, what a lad. I'm going to go with the only Englishman, doctor of the church, the Saint Bede. He's known as Venerable Bede. Great scripture scholar. And I love to announce him. Like, I walk around my house announcing him like he's going to come into the WWE ring.
That's awesome.
The Venerable Bede.
That's awesome. That's your sixth man.
That's my 6th man. Yeah, he's the coach.
My 6th man would be Venerable Father Aloysius, I think is how you say it, Schwartz.
Yeah.
Father Al, that book, Priests and Beggars. I'm always telling everyone about it. But Kevin Wells, the author, he wrote about him, and I was just like, this guy's awesome. He very attached to Our Lady of Benoit, which I believe Virgin of the Poor, and he just did not like things. He was very detached from this world, and he actually also in his books, he died in like the 90s, I believe, maybe 80s, but he in his book also mentions his love for St. Philip Neri, but he was just a great guy. He rebuilt the entire Catholic Church in South Korea after the war, which is
wow,
awesome. But that Priests and Beggars book, I cannot recommend any other book more. It's so good. it's so cool just to see how detached from the world. He definitely made me less about things, which was great.
Excellent.
So, all right. Well, great. You guys comment below which you guys think was the better team, which there is no wrong answer. But thanks for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on again. Like I said, I have all sorts of ideas that we could do.
Okay. Yeah.
For
Thanks for
next.
having me on. Had a good
Yeah,
chat. Thanks.
absolutely. And you guys will don't forget, like, subscribe, comment. It's the new age way, the social media way of spreading the gospel, or spreading Jesus across social media, because social media needs it more. So help us hit that 500 mark. And we'll see you guys next week with Father Elkin Gonzalez. We're going to now talk about receiving the Holy Spirit, which can sometimes be a very confusing topic, and I couldn't explain it. So we're going to have someone on that can. And so we will see you guys next week. God bless.